Yes, yes, team. All right, kicking this off. TMP Radio episode number 2. First one was super, super exciting. Really, really happy to kick this one off. And this is actually the first time we're going live on Instagram as well. So yeah, we got some really, really new stuff kicking off. So really looking forward to this. What I've been up to recently. So I've been doing all my one-to-one coaching, working with my one-to-one clients, which has been super fun. Been loving the journey on that. Working on the next batch of the TMP certification. So that's kicking off in April. So we've been taking some feedback from our previous graduates. We've been looking at ways we can make the course better. And I've been diving deep into curriculum building, looking into the certification, the accreditation side of that as well, which has been super, super difficult, super challenging, but super fun. Personal updates, been back into my boxing, back training, managed to get 2 boxing sessions in this week, 2 runs and strength sessions in. So that's been moving forward. And yeah, it's been super fun. This week I had loads of messages off the back of the announcement that we're kicking off TMP Radio. It's been amazing. It's been super, super fun. I've had a couple of voice notes. I've had a couple of emails come through as well. And yeah, so really looking forward to kicking this off. Good to see you, Doug, my man. Doug is a superstar real estate agent. This guy does some serious numbers in the London area. So good to see you, my man, Doug. Good to see you, Ross, as well, dialing in on Instagram Live. Very cool. Very cool, very cool. Hope you're all good. So I'm going to pull up an email I got. So the email I got, this came in yesterday. This one was, "Hi, Kieran. My name's Laura. I'm 39, diagnosed ADHD business owner in New York. I'm smart. I'm capable. My clients love me. But underneath, I feel like a mess. I can compare myself to other founders and business owners who seem structured and calm. I feel ashamed I can't just be disciplined or simple. How do you lead confidently when your brain doesn't work like everyone else's?" Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing for me, once I understood ADHD and how it affected me and how that worked and how that operated, the biggest thing was really actually understanding how my brain works and actually surrendering to that instead of trying to be like everyone else. Instead of trying to be like every other business owner that might not be neurodiverse, I just understood that my brain is full of distraction. My brain can be overwhelmed. All the tasks I really love, I could dive into and do again and again and again. But the tasks that I don't love, my brain is going to switch off. And instead of actually fighting myself and judging myself for that, the secret came to 2 parts. It was the internal part of, okay, this is how I'm wired. How can I get the best out of that? So it was working on me. And then the second part was actually building a series of systems within the business and working with team members in the business to get them to a place where we could play to my strengths instead of always being handicapped by my weaknesses. So that was that was a huge part. So on the how do you manage yourself part, some ADHD will be mainly attention deficit driven, so struggling to concentrate, always switching tasks. Some of it will be hyperactive, so literally not sitting still, standing up, changing rooms all the time. First of all, you got to understand, well, how do you operate? Doing some performance analysis on how do you work best? What times of day do you work best? Do you work best in the mornings? Do you work best in the evenings? Are there ways in which you can manipulate your diary to get the best out of you? And then the other part of simple ADHD management, your training, your food, your nutrition, your water, breathing, your sleep, all of that has also got to be managed too. So once you start to get that going and you're starting to breathe and you're starting to manage your own ADHD, the next part is actually letting go of the guilt and shame that you've had up until this point. You probably judge yourself for a long time for thinking and feeling how you are, for how you operate. If procrastination has really triggered you or caught you off guard and you've had that ill discipline, and part of it is actually understanding that you don't necessarily have a focus issue, you have a focus selection issue. you're struggling to pick the right things to focus on, that's going to move the needle forward. So once you master yourself, your own ADHD and your own relationship with yourself, then it comes down to the business. So what you'll find is there'll be some tasks that you're very good at that are super, super easy to do. And then there'll be other tasks that you're not good at and that you really, really struggle with. So if that's the case, and there are tasks that you're really struggling to do, building systems, whether that's automations or whether that's hiring a right hand, people that have the opposite to your brain that can help you do those things without you having to get stuck on that. So for me, I've got an amazing lady called Kirsten. She's my creative director and operations manager. She basically fills in all of the gaps for anything that doesn't involve people. Because my strengths are meeting people, working with clients one-to-one, speaking on stage, interviewing people on podcasts and being on podcasts and playing around with this stuff. So very much front of camera on interviews and having fun. Bits I'm not so good at: operations, not good at admin, not good at financial reporting insofar as actually building and building those models and actually following them through and completing weekly reports. And even little things like booking travel and booking where I'm going. And Kirsten is amazing at all of these things. So when you have a second brain, that person, that right hand, that can pick up on the gaps where you most likely are going to drop the ball, that can fill in those, it absolutely changes the game. It changes absolutely everything. So yeah, just because you're wired in that way doesn't actually mean that you're a less than business owner or a bad business owner. Actually, there'll be some superpowers in there that are incredibly special for you. It's just learning how to manage yourself and then how to build the team and the systems and the automations around you in your business so you can continue to play in your strengths and the parts in which you enjoy without getting dragged down into things that your brain just doesn't seem to click with. Cool. Just seeing some people coming in on the live. Oh, great to see you, Rupinder. Great to see you, Katrina, Josh. Strength for endurance. Hey guys, if you got any questions, just drop them into the chat. Could be anything to do with performance coaching. Could be a performance blocker that you've got that's holding you back. Please do drop them in. Would love to get questions. Another thing that I'm playing around with in this radio show is just random things that have been coming up in some of my client sessions, some of my friends, my family. And one thing that comes up again and again is we're living in a really weird world right now. A really, really weird world. Some of the things that I've found really weird is there's now a housekeeping robot called Dot. So if you ever watched iRobot, they essentially now have robots that can do housekeeping, full humanoid bots walking around, and you can actually go on Dot's website, put in your long card details and place an order for one of these things for later in 2026 if you're based in the US. Super crazy. AI is accelerating at phenomenal rates, both good and bad. The Epstein files seems to have upset a lot of people. Obviously, there's tragedy around the world, whether that's Palestine, whether that's Ukraine. There's 2 aircraft carriers sat in the Gulf Sea pointed at Iran. Donald Trump announced he's going to release alien and UFO files. So I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge that if you're a little overwhelmed by it all, I don't blame you. You know, these are rather odd times. If we look at where we are in history right now, we're in a really, really weird moment of history. So given that, you got to cut yourself a little bit of slack. Like, how do you manage yourself and how do you manage your attention when you are in a world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity? How do you do that? Well, first things first is accepting that you can't control any of these things. You cannot control AI that's coming in. You cannot control geopolitical conflict. You cannot control Dot, these housekeeping robots that are coming. You can't control any of these things. You can't control the markets. You can't control that. Often we like to get addicted to the news or to the internet because it gives us a false sense of control. Well, if I know what's going on, then I'm going to be all right. I need to stay on top of these things. But the reality is, most of this stuff you can't actually focus on and you can't do anything about it. It's out of your control. So what do? Well, first things first, it's getting clear on what is it that you're working on? Where is it that you're trying to go? Whether that's your business objectives, whether that's your personal objectives, as long as you're clear on what they are, then you've got to look at what inputs do you need to do on a daily, hourly basis in order for you to move the needle forward towards that. And you just got to keep running experiments and testing and testing and testing, regardless of everything that's changing. What worked last year or even last quarter might not work anymore. And you can get upset about that. You can complain, you can moan, you can play the victim, or you can go, okay, that used to work, doesn't work anymore, pivot, here's what's next. And if you can just focus on the inputs, running short experiments for a week, 2 weeks, a month, a quarter, and doubling down and focusing on that instead of constantly getting reactive to what you see on the internet and what you see online, you're going to get a hell of a lot more done. It's almost putting the blinders on to become focused on where it is that you want to go and what it is that you want to do. So let's have a look. I got a voice note actually, which was quite cool. Our first one. So I'm going to give this a try. Hopefully it's loud enough for everyone to see this. Let's see how this goes. For anyone that's live on Instagram, good to see Chloe, good to see Dovo. So my man, good to see you. Just let me know if you guys can hear this. Hopefully it's coming through.
My name's Tom, founder of a marketing agency in Manchester. I've built this thing from scratch over the last 10 years and we've just managed to cross £3 million in revenue. I employ 11 people and on paper everything's working. But here's the thing. I took 3 days off last week. I didn't check Slack, didn't check emails. I just switched it all off and I felt guilty the entire time. Not relaxed guilty, not I should be like just check one thing type guilty. Like I felt like I was letting everybody down. Like if I'm not pushing, building, thinking, something's probably going to slip. I always told myself I'd build something that gave me freedom. And now I have it and I don't know how to sit in it. So part of me thinks if you slow down, you'll lose your edge. If you're not obsessed, somebody else will outwork you. But I'm tired. And the weird part is the business actually ran fine without me. So why does taking time off feel unsafe? Why does it feel like a weakness? Why does rest feel like a weakness? And how do I switch off without feeling like I'm betraying the mission?
Oh man, what a question! What a question! Hopefully you guys could hear that on the Instagram live. We're testing all this new tech. Didn't know how to play that through there, but you know, I see this with business owners, executives, high performers all the time, which is this weird guilt and this weird shame for taking time off, you know? And it tends to come from a number of different places. One place is, as we know, we've all got to work hard. You know, it doesn't matter what field you're in, you got to work hard in order to be successful. But whenever you get something off the ground, you got to work double or triple as hard and make so many more sacrifices than required. So what happens is you get into this pattern of just, I must be working, I must be working, I must be working, I must be working, I must be working. And that's going to get the business going. But as you can hear for this guy, like, business is working, you know, he's got his team, he's got a decent chunky business, but he's still feeling guilty. And that's because you've associated the feeling of safety with work. And I see this with business owners all the time. Their identity becomes, well, I'm good at work, I feel very safe, I feel very comfortable, I feel very confident at work. But they never really focus on switching out of that gear and out of that lane. There's also often a lot of fears of losing your edge. If I'm not working hard, if I'm not pushing at full pelt, am I going to be left behind? But the reality is your best ideas don't come from just being sat behind the desk staring at your screen. When you look at creativity doesn't come from forced evolution. It doesn't come from just staring and staring and staring. Often your best ideas come from being in different places. Some people it's in the shower, some people it's out on a walk, some people it's when they travel. And you've also got to think that downtime equals uptime because your brain is still working in the background on the business problems that you're trying to solve. It's still there. It's still working. And it's up to you as to whether you want to keep pushing that muscle, because the brain does work like a muscle. And if you overtrain a muscle, you're not going to get the right level of performance out of it. It's the same with the brain. If you want to continue to overtrain, chances are you're just not going to be sharp. Now, how do we know this? Well, just think about it. You know, when you sat in front of the screen and what should take you 30 minutes is taking you 45 minutes or an hour, you're starting to become distracted. You're all over the place. Well, that's usually because you haven't got the right resources and you haven't got the right mental capacity to continue to work. So what do you do about this, right? Because it's very easy to say, I'll just take a break and switch off. But actually doing that and enjoying it is a completely different ballgame. So when my clients come to me with that, first of all, I help them understand the logic that if they do change track, they do change frequency, they are going to get better ideas and they are going to be solving problems in the background. So that's one piece. The second piece is actually understanding the emotional components of the guilt and the shame or the fear or the anxiousness. Like, what are you afraid of if you take downtime? Are you afraid it's all going to come crashing down? Is it a value thing? I am valuable because I work hard, and if I'm not working hard, I'm thus therefore not valuable. Jim Rohn says something beautiful. He said, you don't want to be the guy that's in the office thinking about the beach or being the guy at the beach thinking about the office, because otherwise you're getting nothing done. And it's exactly the same thing. So once you start to unpack some of the emotions that keep you stuck, that keep you feeling guilty or ashamed or locked in and you just can't take any time off without feeling bad, then you start to calm down. Now, how do you unpack some of those emotions? Well, if I'm working with a client one-to-one, I'll be listening out. Where does this feeling come from? Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is there pressure? Is there no pressure? Is it hot? Is it cold? And then once you get really clear on that emotion, that feeling, the next part is actually unpacking where does that come from. Usually comes from childhood, or it comes from previous business experiences that have either worked out or not worked out. And as you start to change your relationship with those memories in your unconscious mind, you reprocess those memories, you just start to calm down a little bit. You start to be a bit more clear. Second thing is a lot of business owners are quite type A. So just sitting on a beach doesn't actually help them. Sometimes it actually stresses them out even more. So another thing is actually just finding a way in which you calm down that works for you. Not for everyone else, but something that switches you off. So for me, specifically when it comes to my training, I do strength and conditioning training because I know I have to at my age to stay in the game. But I don't love it. What I do love is boxing. Not necessarily full duty sparring, but hitting pads or doing a session because it forces me to be present. It forces me to be in the moment. I also love playing chess with a mate over a coffee, especially now it's wintertime and the weather's great, and just spending an hour or two playing chess or chatting away. That for me is very regenerative. It enables me to switch off. So it's the same for you. It's once you've worked past some of the more emotional issues that are stopping you from being present, the next part is then actually finding things that switch you off that work for you versus, relaxing how everyone else feels like they should relax. So yeah. Cool. Okay, let's have a look. By the way, guys, thank you so much for everyone that's dialed in live. If you've got any questions or anything you'd love to ask me around performance, mental performance, please drop it into the chat. Would love to answer any questions that you've got. Okay, so this one is comes from a one-to-one client session that I had recently with a young founder. So this guy is in his mid-20s. He's got 30 staff in his agency. He's got multi-seven figures raised in his personal property portfolio. Like this guy, impressive guy. And he is definitely ahead of schedule. But he's also massively overwhelmed. And he's been stuck in this place. That's why he came to me. He was overwhelmed and stressed and anxious and always on edge and always just never feeling like he can switch off. But also he recognizes that it's impacting his decision making. And then recently he came into session and he was convinced. He's like, I have a money mindset issue. I have there's something emotionally within me that is a problem. And I said, okay, well, how do you know emotionally it's a problem? And he said, I'm just so scattered or overwhelmed or anxious or afraid or and it's got to be a childhood thing. And I said, why? And he goes, I don't know. It's just so intense. So after actually understanding, well, where are you at? How clear are you on your numbers? Like, tell me, are you clear on, your personal budget? Are you clear on your business budget? Are you clear on, the upside, the downsides, the target? Are you clear and do you have the financial clarity for where you are? And he went, not really. I said, right. So, do you know how much financial runway you've got personally, and do you know how much you've got for the business? And he said, no. I said, so what are you doing? And he's like, I'm just cracking on. Money comes in, money goes out. I don't really think about it too much. And actually, when we sat him down, a lot of the overwhelm, a lot of the stress from a financial mindset perspective was actually coming from his lack of financial clarity. So what I got him to do was really simple. Like, really understand his personal budget, really understand his business budget. We set him up with a fractional FD so he could start to look at some financial projections and for where he was at. He had an accountant, but wasn't really looking at any forecasting. And then finally, the next part was financial runway. He wasn't clear on how much breathing space financially that he had. So, as a bare minimum, you always want 3 months of personal expenses and 3 months of business expenses, in my opinion, to feel like you've got financial headway and runway. If you can then get to 6 months and then everything over that then goes back into investment, then you become a hell of a lot calmer, a lot more clear. So anyway, 6 weeks go by, and I said in one of our one-to-one sessions, hey, mate, well, where are you at with the money mindset thing? He goes, oh, dude, I'm so much more calm. I said, funny that. Maybe it wasn't an emotional issue. Actually, it was just about having financial clarity. And I think that's an area that, a lot of people tend to forget when it comes to mental performance. It's particularly if you're going to run a business, you're going to try and grow something, is sometimes you don't have a money mindset issue or an emotional issue. Sometimes it's a skill set issue or it's a discipline issue to get clear on your numbers. So yeah, I thought that was a really, really interesting one. And it can happen a lot. Clients come to session and uh, they think they have emotional issues or mindset blocks when sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is actually just a couple of key questions to help people get clear on where they're at and what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and where they want to go. So cool. All right. Wanted to share that. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm not really a poetry guy. I'm not really a poetry guy, but a mentor of mine sent me a book. And on this book, the first thing is it's a poem. And then at the back of the poem is a series of reflections on each contrast, or each paragraph. So I'm just going to crack it on. It's called The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer, believe it or not. And this is what it says. It says, it doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know, will you risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive? It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you've touched the center of your own sorrow, if you've been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you up to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know If you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. Doesn't interest me where or what or whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. So yeah, pretty deep for a Friday. But what I loved about this poem in particular is something that I think a lot of people really struggle with it, because it speaks to what is it to be human. Ambitious people often judge ourselves for our humanity, judging ourselves for our emotions and judging ourselves for our successes and for our failures. Always questioning, are we working hard enough? Are we doing enough? Are we being enough? Are we achieving enough? Are we enough? And often we waste tremendous amounts of energy just denying and judging our humanity. And I think from a mental performance perspective, I believe the gold standard is the duality of being able to think, feel, and process your suffering, your thoughts, your feelings, your insecurities, your doubts, your fears at the appropriate moment, but then also being able to park suffering, being able to put it in a box and perform in business and life when required. I think it's something that there are moments to actually put the tools down and go, you know what? I probably need to address this. I probably need to be honest with myself. I need to ask myself what I truly want. What really is the problem? And then there are other moments where you got to put that in a box and you got to go and perform and you got to go and get shit done. And if you can get to that place where you can suffer and still perform, that for me is the epitome of mental performance. Knowing that when those dark and anxious thoughts come to visit you, when it's appropriate to go, you know what, I need to go and actually understand some of these and work with them. And then other times go, you know what, I'm going to put you in the waiting room. You're not coming in for a cup of tea. I actually need to get some shit done right now. Now that takes time, it takes skills, it takes practice, it takes tools, it takes help, and you won't always be able to do it. But it's your ability to get knocked off the horse and to get back on it faster that is high performance. It's not the absence of getting knocked off. Oh, I got a great question here from Samantha Charwood. Thank you, Samantha, for putting this in. Do you have any key ways to double down on self-trust other than proof or evidence of your ability? Yeah, I think I know where that question might be coming from. You've probably got a lot of people that have said, you build confidence by having such undeniable proof again and again and again and again to build your confidence. But you got to think about it. That's a very externally based level of confidence. If it only comes from outside of that, if you haven't got that proof or evidence just yet, or you've got the proof and the evidence and you just discard it, you just disregard it, you ignore it, you put it away, you just forget about it, that's also a challenge. I see that with high performers all the time. They still doubt themselves even though they've got everything. They doubt themselves when they've achieved what it is that they wanted to achieve, yet they're still stuck and they're still not feeling enough. They doubt themselves when they get to that next league and next level. So part of this really is not looking at the outside, but it's actually just looking at where you are now. What I like to get clients to do is just write down all of the deepest, darkest things that you have experienced. Because there's no human being that goes through life without suffering. There's no human being that hasn't had themselves being kicked onto the floor and being stamped down. And that just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So a big part of it I like to get clients to do is write down every single dark moment, every single setback where you feel like you had the rug pulled from underneath you. And then when you start to do that, and just appreciate how you're still here. It's amazing. Something that ceases to amaze me is just the rugged, resilient side of humanity and human beings. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I do this exercise sometimes when I speak in small groups. I get everybody to write down the darkest thing that's ever happened to them, put it in a little envelope or a little piece of paper and fold it up, put it into a cup, and I start reading them out. Some of the things that people experience, whether it's really dark stuff or even if it is just general stuff that everybody struggles with, humans can absolutely experience so much pain and chaos and destruction and yet still live and still survive. So if you are somebody that is struggling to see the evidence and to build self-trust, just understand that you've been through a lot just to get to this place. The second part, again, is something that I said earlier, which is just focusing on what needs to be done right now. What needs to be done, and it's trusting yourself that you can find a way. Because if you can trust yourself and trust in the universe that, all right, I'm going to have to work hard, I'm going to do the task, I'm going to show up, I'm going to tick the boxes, you can build your confidence and your self-trust, not necessarily based on everything that's happening externally, but actually you can build that up almost like a bank account with deposits just by doing what you said you would do. So if you said you're going to train 4 times that week, go and train 4 times that week. Unconsciously, your brain will start to trust you a little bit more. If you said you were going to go and take some risks and do something stupid like launch a TMP radio show, just go and do it and see what happens. And regardless as to whether the outcome and whether it works, whether it doesn't work, those promises that you keep to yourself will then start to build that self-trust. Finally, having a mentor or just having someone in your corner that can help you, not necessarily tell you what to do, but tell you what to not do. Often when you're ambitious, the challenge can come from just being overwhelmed by all of the things that you don't need to be doing, and you start taking on too much. So if you have somebody that's walked the path that can say, don't worry about this bit, focus on this bit, then having that person that believes in you when you don't fully believe in yourself, that can be life-changing too. So yeah, really, really, really beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking it. Yeah, inputs versus outputs is exactly that. It's exactly that. Cool. All right, guys. So if that helped, Samantha, is there any follow-up questions in there for you that's coming up off the back of it? I had a challenge to one of my mentees. So I like to work with young people, particularly ones that are really ambitious. Maybe they're going after like a boxing dream or a sports dream, or maybe they're starting their first business. And one of them asked me, they said, do you think ambition is addictive? And I said, absolutely, I do think ambition is addictive. I think ambition it's a little bit like fire, too much fire, and you're going to burn the house down. Not enough fire, nothing gets done. But if you can harness fire correctly, fire drives rockets to the moon, keeps your houses warm, helps you cook your chops. So it's about harnessing that ambition. It's about harnessing that, and it's understanding that it is addictive, but it's also an energy that you have. Not everyone is super ambitious, and that's okay. So it's about playing with what you have and playing a game. Just pivoting in business. I know business, just not this business so much. And evidence hasn't reached the bank account yet. Got it. Okay. As somebody that has pivoted in business before, going into a new field, going into a new realm, it can be totally scary, and it can be really difficult. It can be really, really, really hard. So part of it is taking the pressure off, and it isn't necessarily about have I got what it takes, or am I enough, or can I do this, or that's going to be there anyway. For every level there's another devil, and whenever you do something new, you're always going to be tested, and it's always going to be scary and hard and difficult, particularly if the evidence hasn't hit the business bank account just yet. So what I'd say, Samantha, is really think about the scientist hypothesis, the scientist theory. So if you think about scientists, they'll have a hypothesis. They will So your hypothesis might be, I believe in this new business that I'm pivoting into. I believe that I can generate X per month in this business by working with this many clients, by offering this service. That's the hypothesis. And then you demonstrate, well, what is your experiment? So your experiment might be, okay, well, I believe to be true is to get this business off the ground, I need to show up in marketing with these inputs. I need to show up in the sales and networking with these inputs. And I need to develop this type of product. And then you run the experiment and you go out and you run that for a set period of time, whether that's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. You go out to market, you go and see, do people want it? Do they not? And then you go back to the drawing board. And then once you go back to the drawing board, then you're looking at, okay, what worked? What didn't work? And if some of it did work, you double down on that. If nothing worked, you come up with another hypothesis and you test that. Now, if there are people that have experience in building the type of businesses that you're pivoting into, they can be always helpful and ideal. If you don't know anyone, that's okay. But by taking the focus off of you and putting it onto the experiment, that's really the main thing. And that's much easier said than done because you're probably quite proud of what it is that you do. You're very, very proud of how you show up and how you work with people. So that can also tie into that. But if you can create that degree of separation, and I've got mentees to do this with me in the past, which is where they've been becoming overwhelmed, particularly with unusual business models. I say, all right, well, just email me your hypothesis. What is your hypothesis? What is the length of the experiment and what are the inputs of the experiment? And then just go and test it. And go and see what happens. So that's another thing that whenever you're pivoting businesses or looking at, that's another thing that you can get onto as well. Cool. So from my side, that's pretty much most of what I've got down. If anyone else has got any other questions that are coming in, really glad that was really helpful. Samantha, thank you so much for playing today. Super, super cool. And this is the first time I've gone live on Instagram as well. So yeah, thank you so much for playing and taking that leap. You know, I'm going to share something actually. It was a mate of mine, and he said to me, mate, have you seen all of this Epstein file stuff that's come out, and all of these people and all these world elites are all doing these dark and dangerous things? He's like, everything's all a lie. I don't know what to do, and he was getting really stressed and overwhelmed and distracted by it all. And I have a very good relationship with my mate. We're very direct with each other. And I said, well, you're talking about this like you can do something about it. He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you said, well, I don't know what to do about this. Full due respect, mate. You can't really put in a phone call and sort this out. You know, this is a little bit above your pay grade. And he goes, yeah, but that wasn't what I was saying, but I just don't know what to do about it. And the reality is, you can't control it. You know, there's nothing you can do about it. Can you share some moral outrage online and punch the sky? Like, that's not fair. Yeah, you can do that. And if that makes you feel better, you can't do that. But the reality is, those things are so far out of your control. There are so many moving objects. There's so many forces that are happening in the background that you've got no idea about. So you can choose to get caught up in the media storm. You can choose to get distracted by the news and everything that's in there. Or you can focus down onto, well, hang on, what is my contribution to the world? This is my little patch of existence, and this is my little patch of land on this planet that we all inhabit. What is it that I need to focus on? What are my goals? What are my objectives? How do I want to serve my people, my community? Just cut out all the noise. Since we've been playing a little bit more with the radio show, I've been logging more into Instagram this week. And even as I've been logging into Instagram more this week, man, it's so noisy. So noisy. So I put a barrier in to stop me from logging in, and my world quietened down a hell of a lot, and I was a hell of a lot more calm, a hell of a lot more clear. So yeah, a part of it is where you are in a world of a hell of a lot of change and a lot of things are happening and markets are moving. You have got to defend your time, defend your peace, and really, really own that. I absolutely cannot stress that enough. Cool. All right, guys. Well, if there's any other questions for anyone that would like to put something in, please do drop them into the chat. Well, that's everything that's been going on my mind the past week. Next week, on the next episode, I'm gonna keep listening out. I'm gonna invite some more people on to come and make any calls. Didn't get any calls today, but perhaps next week we'll get some with the Dials Live in. That was super fun last week with Alex. I think it's Alex as the challenge dialed in. So that's me. Big love, team. See you all in the next episode.